So I was reading Mastery of Love by Don Miguel Ruiz, author of The Four Agreements, and thought some people might appreciate a few takeaways from it if you don't want to read the whole thing. It's only 200 pages. I'd say it's a pretty light read, especially if you read Four Agreements. It hits on a lot of topics that are similar, so you might be able to move through it a little more quickly. The general sense, he says, is that it's a struggle to master love because we've learned to put masks on as young children, and they're to protect our emotional wounds. But because we've sort of stepped away from our center and who we are as people, when we go out into the world, we have a false self we're putting up. And then, of course, we're meeting the other person's false self. And then on top of that, we have other expectations of what our partner should be from outside sources. So now we have all these different visions and images in our head of who the person's supposed to be and who we're supposed to be. And this really gets in the way of just getting to be the self and then be the self and then love the relationship that the two are in. So that's the big problem. And when we have these projected masks on, we can't even really love ourselves because we've dissociated from ourselves. We hate ourselves a little bit. And the reason we hate is because it hurt. It hurt growing up. So the mind starts hating that other self, that true self. We just didn't learn how to better deal with these people. And really one way that he recommends of better dealing with people who are mean, we could say, is to not take it personally, because most people are operating from their wounds and their false perceptions of how things are supposed to be and how they're supposed to act. And Don Miguel Ruiz, and I would agree, says it's actually pretty humorous if you think that we're all infinite beings and we're having this, worldly experience, and here we are getting tripped up on somebody saying we're not good enough in some way or another. And so from there, how do we go back to love? Well, first of all, we have to begin accepting ourselves. So accepting our emotional wounds and healing those. And then the other side he brings up was accepting the body and how the body is and all it does for us. And there's a lot of problems with body acceptance in this world. Now, he talks about the perfect relationship. What would that look like? Perfect relationship would be people fully loving the self and then fully loving their partner as is. He compares it to if somebody has a pet dog or a pet animal, I guess, in general. The pet we look at as essentially perfect. We're very happy with them and love them, even when they tear up our stuff or go to the bathroom somewhere they're not supposed to. We still love them. And yet, when we have a partner, we can start creating all these rules and expectations, and if only they would do this or that or whatever it might be. Whereas his recommendation is first, accept the person as they are when you first meet them and assume that this is who they are. And if you're okay with them as they are, then great, then you can be in a relationship with them. But if you're with them and you think, I don't know, they would need to change some things, well, then they're not your person. Go find someone else. He says, why would you go into the store and buy something that doesn't fit you and then walk out with it? That doesn't make any sense. It's as though you live in a magical kitchen. That's what he references. And the magical kitchen can cook for you anything that you want, anytime that you want. And then somebody knocks on the door and says, hey, do you want this piece of pizza? And you're like, dude, I don't need your pizza. I can just make it here. But a lot of us have forgotten that because we're living in this illusion. We've started caring about others people's expectations more than our own. And because of that, we're willing to take that slice of pizza that maybe we don't even like when we have a whole kitchen where we can make whatever we want. And so he says the path back to this is realizing we are the ones who provide our own happiness, not somebody else. We have to learn to start being happy with ourselves, start learning to love ourselves. And by doing that, we can also generate more love for others because we get who we are. So if we're loving to self, others can be loving to self, and they'll also be loving to themselves. And so that's the big thing, the complete acceptance of the partner as they are. If they're not the way you want them to be, then find a partner who is. And as you learn to love yourself more, this tends to become an easier and easier option. Now, one other thing that I found interesting is he brings up sex, and that sex, a lot of people have mistakenly thought that sex is going to bring love for them. So they go out and seek sex thinking they're going to feel love, and yet it always ends up being empty. And that's because the mind will not be satisfied with sex, which is a bodily function. The mind is craving this love, and sex is a physical thing. And we could say that it's making love in some ways, but in the way that he's bringing it up, it's really about the physical action, while the mind needs something different. So it's really never going to be what we need. And for healing the emotional body, he really focuses on forgiveness of self, then forgiveness of others. And the last piece that really stood out for me is he said, it's easy to be what you are. And what I like about it's easy to be what you are is there's so many dating books out there. I know when I first started this a dozen plus years ago, I thought that there was all these lines I needed to learn and all these like ins and outs of things. And it's true, I did need to learn all of that because I wasn't being who I was. Now, I didn't really know who I was at the time. Had I had a book that, said take your mask off, I don't know if it would have even resonated back then. I don't know that I would have believed I had a mask on. I would have so associated with it. And we live and we learn, and that's the whole thing. Now, what I've noticed is when I've started taking the masks off, the byproduct has been that I've been more authentic. And I've learned, and I continue to learn, how to satisfy my own needs for happiness and connection and these different things. Yes, we can have other people in our lives, and yes, we are responsible for our own feelings, and they're responsible for theirs. That makes relationships a lot easier to manage. And what I've noticed, though, is authenticity is the byproduct of that, and it makes all the connections easier because there's less of the mind working, saying, who do I need to be for this? What do I need to say for this? And it certainly makes dating easier. It makes just the whole process easier because, again, the philosophy I'm going in with and that I'd recommend other people go in with is, does it fit? If it doesn't fit, I'm not going to buy it. Do I want the slice of pizza? I live in a magic kitchen. I could just whip something up. So that's what I walk away with, and I hope something resonated for you and that you got something good out of it.